Welcome, everyone, to the Viva Connections and SharePoint Framework bi-weekly sync on October 15th. That is today. I am your host, Beau Cameron, and we got a great agenda. Let's see. Vess is going to cover the latest updates from SPFx. We're going to go through all of our community project updates. Then we have picture time, so make sure you get your hairdos all set and your cameras ready. We got 3 great demos from Mr. Paolo Pialorsi on SPFx patterns. Lewis is going to give us a nice demo on OpenAI and SPFx, and finishing up will be Sergej showing us how to generate list-based models using a single command with SPFx. Coming too fast. There we go. All right. If this is your first time on this call, we have a lot of available resources for you. You can watch this call. It will be recorded and it will be displayed on our YouTube, as well as all the demos you see today. If you're on LinkedIn, because you're a business type of folk, you can join us in our new LinkedIn group, where we have a lot of open discussions there. Also, we have all of our tools, SDKs, samples within our GitHub repository. So if you're looking to use some of the tools or samples that you see today, you can find all of these at aka.ms/community/home. Of course, we have this call like the one you are on now. They happen monthly and bi-weekly on various topics. This one happens every other week, and we alternate with the general dev call, which is the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform call. And again, if you're looking to access all of these calls, you can get the invites from aka.ms/community/calls. And the next Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community call is the 10th of October, which I believe is Tuesdays. And if you're looking for invites on these, you can go to aka.ms/community/ms-speaker/call/invite. I don't know why we use so many hyphens, but it's there. And if you're interested in presenting, so you've been working on something cool that you want to share with the rest of the community, we do welcome everyone to present a demo. You can submit a request through our aka.ms/community/request/demo site, and we'll get you scheduled. And this is David.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Beau. Well, friends, if you are unfamiliar with this program, it is called Sharing is Caring. It is a program that provides hands-on guidance for you. And what does that mean? It means we're going to join in live team calls together, and we're going to walk through a variety of processes to contribute to this amazing community that you might not have been familiar with before, like submitting a pull request in GitHub, or hey, what is a pull request in GitHub? Well, we're going to do that together. It's going to be a safe space so that you can ask any and all questions, which means we do not record it. So please get registered. We've got a session next week for those that are getting all excited at the Power Platform Conference. Right now, we are live at Vegas, and we are going to show you how to contribute to that community. And those skills are applicable to all the PnP and community repos, SPFX samples as well. So join in. Even if you're not working on the Power Platform, you can still benefit by learning how to interact with GitHub. Now, once we have contributed to this community, which we all want to do, we can get recognized. On the next slide, we can get involved with the recognition program. And this is a program that provides accredited and official badges from Credly. And we cover the costs. We've got some fun new initiatives. It is now October, so take advantage of the Oktoberfest. All you need to do to get this 1 month available badge is submit a single pull request. So definitely go get involved. Submit those pull requests. Join the Sharing is Caring next week to learn how if you're not familiar, and we will walk you through together. And by the way, next week, that Sharing is Caring is a contribution. So you'll get the badge for just joining and contributing. Beau, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, David. All right, now for some updates, we're going to hand this over to Vesa on SharePoint Framework.
Excellent quick updates from my side in here. So SharePoint Framework 1.18 is the latest version to be used in production. A lot of new capabilities there. We will be actually releasing 1.18.1 relatively soon, but that's not for bug fixing. It's actually new features which are targeted for a mobile theme support for Viva Connection Mobile. So that's coming relatively soon. The beta is coming most likely next week for that one. Now, 1.18 as such is the latest version. We're working already in 1.19 19 and what's going to be there. In between of 1.18 and 19, we're also releasing a lot of new capabilities or plan to release the capabilities on Viva Connection Adaptive Card, Advanced Card Designer, and then the bot framework part, Viva Connection ACES, might actually come out later this year or might go actually on next year. But nothing, a lot of innovation in here. We're collecting feedback for 19, and if you find any issues within what's out there, please do share at the issue list at the SPFx/issues, so we know how to improve your experience. But that's a quick update from my side.
Awesome, thank you, Vesa. All right, now updates from our open source initiatives. I'll be talking about PnPjs today. So in the next release, which is going to be 3.19 for October 16th, we fixed a couple bugs. Some in with the send mail endpoint, we weren't allowing proper message types into that call, so that's been fixed. We've added a new order operator on our get all method for SharePoint items. We implemented a fix for adding image fields onto SharePoint lists. Had some updates to some docs. Patrick, Julie, and myself are working hard on version 4, which we think you all are going to love. Lots of updates coming into Microsoft Graph within V4. If you're interested in seeing what we're currently trying to build there, you can check out issue 2678. We will have nightly builds coming soon. So once we do, we would love anyone to start pulling those down, help us check for bugs, and we're excited to get that underway. All right, now updates for CLI for Microsoft 365. I believe that's Gary.
Yeah, hi Beau. Hi everyone. So we've got a new major release of CLI for Microsoft 365. The V7 is now the latest version. So we have a few added commands, so for Azure AD, Microsoft 365 tenant, and upgraded your SharePoint framework projects as well. But you can get hold of the V7 by using the @latest tags if you want to install that from npm or from Docker. Now, because this is a major release, there are some breaking changes. Only a few minor ones, but definitely check out the release notes at aka.ms/CLI-M365/notes. In there, you'll see all the breaking changes. If you have any issues whatsoever, please get in touch on the issues list or join our Discord server as well if you're having any problems, and we'll definitely look to help you out. Next slide. So we've just had a new release of Microsoft 365 Developer Proxy. So this is the tool that can help you simulate API errors, behaviors, and mock APIs as well. So we had the 0.12.1 release, and this was a huge release. Lots of new features. So the ability to mock an nth request. So that would be, you might want to mock the second or the third request of the same type. You can now do that. You can create mocks from requests. So you can put the proxy into record mode now, click around on your application and let the requests fly through, and we will track those and create the mock files for you, so you don't have to do them by hand. The ability to delay traffic as well is a really interesting one as well. So actually introduce latency into those responses. And we've added in some new features for rate limiting as well, so that you can use rate limiting with any API. And we've got examples of how to implement rate limiting with the OpenAI API as well. And we've got further updates for Microsoft Graph batch responses as well. And one last feature of being able to throw errors if you've got requests that are not mocked, so you can identify those and then mock them. What's coming? We've got a release coming at the end of the month. We're focusing on updates to our documentation and the idea of simulating the behaviors of different size of Microsoft 365 tenants as well. So please go along to aka.ms/m365/proxy. You'll find all the information in the latest release. Beau, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Gary. Yeah, that's super cool. If you're a dev, definitely check that out. All right, reusable controls. Alex is out today, so I'll be covering this. If you're an SPFx dev and you haven't used these or haven't heard of these, you definitely need to. There's all sorts of reusable controls you can use in your SPFx solutions without having to write them yourself. So we talk about list pickers, file pickers, taxonomy pickers, and more. There's been some updates over the last couple of months, so make sure you check those out in the latest release. For more info, check out the GitHub repository and follow them on Twitter. All right, we have Viva Connections Toolkit. Adam, take it away. No, Adam. Adam, if you're on mute.
Oh, no, I'm here. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I got disconnected for a while. Perfect day. Okay, anyway, Viva Connections Toolkit is a Visual Studio Code extension that aims to boost your productivity and SPFX development. So anything like creating new projects from scratch, but also from sample, upgrading, validating your dev environment, I don't know, granting API permissions, creating a CI/CD pipeline, GitHub workflow directly from VS Code, renaming, and many, many more. So if you still haven't, be sure to give it a try and see if it will help you as well. We released the V2 not so long ago, and we are already working on the next minor release, which will be the V2.1. And this will be a more technical release where we want to increase some more learning materials, refactoring of the inner dependencies, some small bug fixing, and maybe a small rebranding of the product. And we are already looking ahead in the future for the V3 and are now gathering ideas for the next major release and new features. So be sure to join this discussion. And if you have anything you would like to see in this extension, be sure to let us know. Okay, happy coding, everybody, and back to you, Beau.
Thanks, Adam. All right, modern search. So no big updates here in the last couple months. But last I heard, this team's looking for help. So if you have available time, they are looking for someone to help contribute upgrade PnPjs. So it's currently on V2, and they're looking to upgrade this to V3. So definitely reach out. The last release was 4.9.3. And then SPFx samples. David, take it away.
Yes, I am filling in for Hugo today, and so we have our extensions and web parts available. There are a number of samples that are in the repo, PRs ready to go. Hugo is working on them, but he's been super busy at the Power Platform Conference running the community lounge, so he is going to get those processed. We talked about it yesterday, so he's on it, but we do love new samples, and again, you can get a Hacktoberfest badge and all the other thematic badges for this season. So take advantage of it, submit those samples, update documentation, all of it is accepted. And with that, we can move on to Aces and Derek.
Yep, that's me. We have one new sample that got approved in the last couple of weeks. That is from Amory Thomas. It shows the pages in your SharePoint site and allows you to promote those to news items. So it's pretty cool. Check it out if you are just starting with Aces. There's that, as well as a bunch of other samples as well. And if you want to contribute, we love samples too. Back to you, Beau.
Awesome. Thanks, Derek. All right, optional picture time. Time for everyone to get their cameras on and get those hands up in the air. If someone could open up together mode.
Like you just don't care.
Yeah, we got 50 seats, so let's fill them up.
We can still a few more seats in the room. We're already here with Bill. Let's do a high five as we're waiting. Bill, ready? There we go. Hey, oh, sorry, smacking. 50 seats in the room. A few more seats. David is calling from Las Vegas. I can see him in there. A few other familiar faces as well. This is really good. It's not super pixelated. This is and a duck is in the room. Duck is in the room. That's really cool. So let's put the recording on and let's do some hand waving. Duck, please hand wave. That could be problematic for Duck. Excellent. Awesome to have you, everybody, in the call. We'll grab a GIF animation out of this and share it in social media. Excellent. Brilliant. We'll do that right after the call. Thank you for that. Let's go back on the scheduled program.
We got our demos now. So our first demo is going to be Paolo showing us SPFx patterns using Azure hosted middle tier in supported ways.
Yes, thank you, Beau. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know when you see it.
We can see it.
Perfect. So welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about how we can consume an hosted Azure hosted API or a middle tier API in SharePoint Framework the right way. So let's start setting the context. Let's say that you have a SharePoint Framework web part and you want to consume SharePoint Online or Microsoft Graph or any other third-party API from within that SharePoint Framework web part. And you want to do that not directly in the client-side code in SharePoint Framework, but you rather want to use a backend API or a middleware API, which will be the middleware between your SharePoint Framework web part and the actual backend API. Why? Why would you do that? Well, because it is a more solid solution. Because, for example, if you want to run a background process, you can do, and even if the user will close the browser, your background process will keep on working in the middleware service. It is more versatile because you can have background tasks running. It is more scalable because you can rely on a backend infrastructure like Azure. You have a better governance because you can do monitoring, for example, with application insights of what's going on in your middleware API while consuming the backend API. And you can also have a better and more granular management of the permissions, because rather than having to grant specific permissions to SharePoint Framework to consume the API you want to use, you can just give those permissions to your middleware API so that you have a more granular control from a security point of view. When you do that, in SharePoint Framework, of course, you also need to take care of security because that's a fundamental component of your architecture. So how can you manage the security and how can you make it to being able to consume a backend API, as I said, like SharePoint Online, Graph, or any third-party API on behalf of the user identity? We need to find a proper way to do that. Well, we have seen people using a pattern which I would clearly say, I would like to clearly say it is a wrong pattern, which is generating the access token to consume SharePoint Online or Graph or whatever else inside the client-side code of SharePoint Framework, and then sharing that access token with the middleware API. That's wrong. Don't do that. The right way of doing what we are talking about is to rely on the on behalf of flow, which is available through Azure Entra ID, also known as Azure Active Directory previously. So what is the on behalf flow? The on behalf flow is a flow that allows you and your applications to get a token on behalf of a user so that when you get that specific token, you will be able to consume a backend API, providing a token to the target API, which will include the information about who is the user in the front end willing to consume that API. This is really powerful scenario because it allows you to act on behalf of a user, even if you are in a middleware or backend infrastructure. Just to give you an idea, this is what happens when you use the OBO flow, or the on behalf of flow. You have an application, which could be, for example, your SharePoint Framework web part. Your SharePoint Framework web part will send a request to a middleware API, which is something that we will dig into really shortly. When you get to the middleware API providing your access token with your information about your identity, that middleware API will provide to the Microsoft Identity Platform, so to the Entra ID endpoints to get a token, will send a request to get an OBO token. And in that request, the application, the middleware service, will include the access token provided by the user at front-end level, as well as the credentials of the middleware API, so the client ID and client secret, or the client ID and the certificate of the middleware API. The Microsoft Identity Platform will return to the middleware API a new access token, which will be created in order to being able to consume the backend service, which can be SharePoint, Online, Graph, or anything else, on behalf of that specific user. And as such, the middleware API will get back the response and will be able to provide the actual result or action to the end user. From a permission grant point of view, you know that whenever we consume an API through Azure Entra ID, we also need to grant proper permissions to the application willing to do that. Well, with the OBO flow, we don't have an interactive permission grant from an end user point of view, because the actual subject, which is consuming the backend API, is your middleware, is not directly SharePoint Framework. As such, in order to have the grant of those permissions, we have three options. One is to configure a property in Azure Entra ID for your application, which is called known client applications, through which you declare the applications which will be allowed to do that with your application registered in Entra ID. You can do the pre-authorized applications using another setting still in the manifest of the Azure Entra ID application, which is the pre-authorized application section of the manifest. Or if you provide an admin consent for your application registered in Entra ID, well, that admin consent, being a consent made by an admin, a tenant admin, will implicitly also grant the permission to your application to do or to use the OBO flow. So let me move to the demo and let me explain you how it works step by step. First of all, and just for the sake of completeness, this is the sample that I'm going to show you. You can already find it in the adoption.microsoft.com site under the sample solution gallery. And today is the very first one you can see in the homepage because it is fresh new, but you can just search for it, searching for middleware, for example, or you can find the link, I guess, in the chat. Now, in Azure Entra ID, in my target tenant, I have registered an application which I will use to implement this flow. The application is a regular Entra ID application, and in the API permissions, I decided to give my application the permission to read the sites and the user, and to read all the sites from SharePoint Online point of view. This application is also exposing an API, so it does have an endpoint that can be consumed by another subject, which will be SharePoint Framework, as long as there will be the middleware.consume permission for this specific application ID. That said, let's move to the demo and see how it works first of all, and then we can dig into the code. This is just a very simple web part for the sake of explaining you what's going on. I can click on a button, and I will be able to consume a backend API through a middleware API in order to get via Microsoft Graph who the user is, so the UPN of my user, as well as the title of the site in which I am, again, using the middleware in between. How does it work? Well, in SharePoint Framework, sorry, wrong Visual Studio. In Visual Studio Code, I have my solution, and I have configured in the package solution.json file that my SharePoint Framework solution requires to being able to consume this API with this permission scope, the middleware.consume that we have just seen in Entra ID, in the app in Entra ID. Then in the web part, we rely on the out-of-the-box capability of SharePoint Framework to create a secure client, HTTP client, to consume an external API. Specifically, we use the AAD HTTP client factory object of the SharePoint Framework context to get a client for our API. Notice that this is exactly the UDQ URI of the app that I registered in Azure Entra ID. With this client created, I simply provide it to a React component together with a couple of information that I will explain you later. And in the React component, whenever I will click on the button to consume my middleware API, I simply use that client, that AAD HTTP client, to make a post request to my target API, so to an endpoint that I created and that I will show you shortly. And I will simply provide a request which will have in the body of the request a JSON object with the tenant name and the site in which I am right now. Under the cover, if we look at that, SharePoint Framework, if I press F12 here, will make a request. Let's do it again. Will make a request to my target endpoint, providing the payload, the relative site URL, and the tenant that I'm using. And in the response, I will get back the information. Now, what is really interesting is that right now, And I'm showing you just for the sake of explaining you what's going on, but you shouldn't rely on that on a daily basis. Here you have an authorization header, which will include a bearer token. If I will dig into this token, again, just to explain you what's going on, this token targets the ID of my API. This GUID is precisely the unique ID of my application running here. And it declares that I have the middleware consume permission for my user. And here you can see my preferred username. Perfect. Now, on the middleware layer, we have an ASP.NET minimal API, which will simply rely on out-of-the-box libraries provided by Microsoft, and specifically on the MSAL, the Microsoft Authentication Library, so that in my minimal API, I have a post action that I provide called consume with OBO. And in this one, first of all, I verify using the out-of-the-box functionalities of .NET that the request that I'm getting in does have the proper permission scope that I want to have for any request that I need to serve, so that I can guarantee that I will only provide the result of my endpoint to those requests with a proper access token, with a proper permission scope in the access token. This is based on a few settings that you can have in the application settings, like, for example, we need to declare the target tenant, the client ID, the audience we are looking for, and of course, we will need the credentials, which are well hidden right here for security reasons. And when I do that, once I have validated the token, I can just extract without touching it and without looking into it. But I can just extract from the request that I get the access token that I've got from SharePoint Framework, and using a utility function which will rely on MSAL, I can make an on behalf of flow dance with Azure Enter ID in order to build a confidential client application, confidential because I'm using a client ID and a client secret. And I will provide an assertion which will be based on the token provided by the user. And as such, I will be able to acquire a token on behalf of, which means, please give me a new token, which I will use to consume SharePoint Online or Graph on behalf of the current user. Let me put a breakpoint here, just for the sake of completeness, and let me call the API one more time. So let me refresh this page, and let me make another request. Here we are. Here we can get the OBO token. And if we look again, just for the sake of explaining you what's going on, you don't need to do that on a daily basis. This token will give me the permission to consume this new audience, which is SharePoint Online now in my target tenant. The app consuming is this one, so the middleware API that I registered. I can still see that I'm going to consume SharePoint Online on behalf of my user, as you can see right here. But now the permissions that I have are those for SharePoint Online. Okay? By doing this, we can easily configure the permissions that we want to have at the middleware layer without the need to grant a bunch of permissions to the SharePoint Framework client, meaning that we will give those permissions to all of the SharePoint Framework web parts and components running in our tenant. But we rather just grant SharePoint Framework to consume our middleware API. And then we have a granular management of the permissions at the middleware layer. This is the right way of consuming a middleware API from SharePoint Framework in a secure way and on behalf of the currently connected user. That said, again, you will find the whole source code of the solution on GitHub and in the sample gallery. And thank you, and back to you, Beau.
Awesome, fantastic demo. I use that flow quite a bit in a lot of the applications I build. Awesome, great job. All right, next up. We have Lewis on calling Azure OpenAI with data connector from an SPFx web part.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can.
Cool. I'm gonna share my screen. Please let me know when you can see it.
We can see. Take it away.
Thank you very much. Yeah, In this demo, I'm going to show you how we can use custom data sources on Azure OpenAI from an SPFx web part. Very quick about me slide. My name is Luis Mañez. I work as a chief architect at ClearPeople. I'm a usual contributor of this amazing community and also a Microsoft MVP. And you can find me in the social networks at Luis Mañez, so feel free to say hi. With Azure OpenAI custom data sources, now we're going to be able to easily connect your own data to OpenAI and do like a ChatGPT using our data. It's pretty cool. Please note that this is still a preview service and a limited access. So you're going to fill a very long form for Microsoft saying you don't want to conquer the world. And after that, in a couple of days, you should have access. The link below has more information, but again, this is still a preview, and you need to ask access first. Currently, there are 3 support data sources. You can connect directly to Azure Search Index that supports semantic search, and you can map text fields for OpenAI. And also there's an Azure Blob Storage, and you can even manually upload your files directly. These 2 last data sources actually behind the scenes are also Azure Search. So they are going to create a search index behind the scenes, but we're going to see it better in a minute. For this demo, I'm using a hotels data set in an Azure Search Index. So when you create an index, you can upload this demo data set. It's coming directly from Microsoft, and it contains just information about different hotels. So this is the one that we are using in the demo. I've enabled semantic search because that's going to improve the chat experience, but it's not required at all. And this is how it looks, the hotels index with the name, description, category, address, rooms, and so on. And this is the configuration of the semantic search. So basically, I am telling the hotel name is the title field. Then my index has a couple of fields, description and description in French, that are content fields. And finally, I have tags and category that can be seen as a keywords field. This is the semantic configuration. This is how the data looks in the Azure Search. So we have the hotel name, descriptions, address, and so on, different rooms. And let's see it in action. The easiest way to configure a data source is using Azure AI Studio. And this is a tool from the Azure portal, and you can play directly with Chat, GPT, DALL-E, and so on. So if we click here in Add Your Data, we can create a new data source. We have the 3 options I already mentioned. If you select, for instance, the blob storage, you need to provide your blob storage in Azure, your container, but also you need to provide your Azure Cognitive Search and enter a name for the index. Also, that's going to create an indexer. So every hour or daily or whatever you configure here, it's going to crawl the documents on your blob container, and then are going to be indexed in Azure Search, and OpenAI is going to use the Azure Search behind the scenes. And if we select the upload files options, we have similar things. You select you need to select a blob storage resource and a search resource, and then the manual files, the manual files that you are uploading, are going to end up in the blob storage and are going to be crawled and indexed in Azure Search again. So behind the scenes, everything is Azure Cognitive Search. So this is my cognitive search with my hotels index on here that I'm going to select. I'm happy with whatever. Next. And now we are mapping the fields. So for content, let's say all these fields are actually content. These are single text fields. My file name might be the hotel ID. The title is hotel name. I don't have any URL in my index, so I skip this one. I'm enabling semantic search, and this is my configuration. This is already configured. I'm happy. And you can even apply some kind of security trimming if you mark this option. And let's say you have in your index search a field that contains security groups IDs from Azure ID. You can select that field here. And when Azure OpenAI runs the query to the Azure search, it's going to apply security trimming. So only the documents that the current user has a group in that security group's IDs is going to be bring back. It's not my case for this demo. So let's create it. Now we have the data source already on here. So we can do things like find me a luxury hotel. And that's going to run the OpenAI query, and it's going to use our custom data source. So here is coming back information, and trust me, this is from my index. This is not real world information. Also, it adds references. This is what is called citations, and this is actually pointing to the real data in Azure Search. So you can check that the information returned here is the right one, because you can check why is answering this data. Okay, this is to configure the data source, and we can take a look to the web part in the sample. So the web part has been already added to the page and is running locally here. So in that case, let's say that find me an affordable hotel. And again, this is running OpenAI. And I can get an option for an affordable hotel, and we can say that it offers fitness center services. And it's I found another one, that one offers fitness center, and so on. So you have the ChatGPT style here, working with your own data. Very cool. Go back to the slides. So all of this is working, just running a query to an extensions endpoint in the OpenAI API. And that endpoint is extension/chat completion. So you need to do a post request to that endpoint. And there's a data sources array property that you can configure with your data source. And in this case, you configure the different parameters to connect to that data source. So in this case, is the Azure Search endpoint, the API key for the Azure Search, index name, if you have the semantic configuration or not, the different mappings, and so on. Basically, this is what we have configured using the portal, but here directly in the API. So you don't need the portal. You are just calling the API, providing all the data source information in these parameters. Everything is very well documented in the link below. And also the messages. So you provide the chat history with the different messages. The user asks for this, the assistant, the AI in this case, reply this, user assistant. The tool role is for the response. And this is how it looks, the response from the endpoint. So actually, the actual response from the assistant is in here, role assistant content. But you also have this other role tool with another content that is actually a chunk of JSON. If we format these citations, is this JSON with an array of items. And this is curious because this docfile here is actually referencing the 5 item in the citations. So this is how it works. This is not actually documented, but per my test, this is how it works. So you can get the reference from the citations. Okay, and about the source code, we have the web part, and the web part have a main hotel finder component, React component. That component is getting the HTTP client from the SharePoint framework. And also here I'm initializing the graph Toolkit because I'm using the persona component to render the current user profile picture. In the main React component, our hotels finder, we have another component with the list of messages, the chat history, and another one with the text area and the button. And there's a onQuerySend method, and this method is using a class called completion service. We'll see it in a minute. This is the one that is making the call to the OpenAPI in this get completions method. And we pass the chat history, the different messages, and the current user query that just the user has typed in the test area. And once we get the response, we just update some state variables. And this completion service class gets the HTTP client from the context, and in the completions methods, we are creating a completion request builder object that's gonna help to prepare all the JSON for the body request. We add the different messages from the history, so user assistant, user assistant, user assistant. We configure some headers, and finally, we do that post request to the OpenAPI extensions endpoint with the body of the request. The body of the request is built with this request builder. And basically here we configure the data source. So the type is Azure Cognitive Search, and then we provide the different parameters, endpoint, API key, index name, fields mapping, and so on. And there are other parameters just related with the max tokens and temperature and so on for the OpenAI. And we have just some helper methods to add the different chat history, user and assistant messages. And that's pretty much from the code side. The sample is already available in this URL, so feel free to download and give it a try. Please remember that everything is still preview, so this web part is kind of experimental. And that's all. Thank you very much for having me, and back to you, Tim.
Awesome, Louis. That's super cool. OpenAI is really awesome. If you can get that in your tenant, I highly recommend checking it out. All right, up next, we got Sergej.
Yeah.
Giving us a nice demo on list-based models.
Yes. So, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Hi, my name is Sergej Schwabauer, and I work as a lead developer at AURUM in Nuremberg, Germany. I have more than 14 years of experience in SharePoint development, and I also have a blog where I regularly write and publish my solutions or report about my experience, spfxapp.dev. I'm happy to be able to present one of my solutions in the PnP community guild for the third time. Today it's about my command line interface. I know the title of the topic is quickly generate list-based models using a single command with SharePoint framework, but it's much more than that. Actually, the idea was different. I just wanted a small utility script to assist me with configuring an SPFx project. I think many of you configure SPFx projects in a similar way. Well, I do. The configurations don't take much time or effort, but it's still annoying to perform the same steps repeatedly. I'm a developer, so I wanted to automate this. That's why I developed a CLI, my first one, by the way. I have to admit that the CLI is optimized for my configurations and experiences. Initially, I never planned to make it as public as it is now, such as in the PnP call. I'm even more happy if you like it and will also use it. I look forward to your feedback and ideas that I can integrate. I will first go over how to install it and then the general commands before showing you a demo. To install it, you can use the following command: npm install SPFX appdev CLI global. Once installed, you can invoke CLI commands directly from your operating system command line through the SPFX appdev executable. You can also use the alias SPFX and send off SPFX SPFx AppDev because it's shorter and quicker to type. I will use the shorter form here. Now let's move on the main commands. SPFx new, init, generate, custom rules, and config. I will explain almost all of these commands into the demo. Let me end the slideshow and go to Visual Studio. Okay, I've been thinking for a long time about how to start, and I think I have found a good solution. I'm going directly into the configuration. There is the global configuration and the local configuration. The local configuration is helpful when you wanted different settings per project, such as different package manager or SharePoint credentials or whatever. The global configuration is used if there is no local configuration file. Let me show you my current global configuration. SPFx config all. These are, of course, not the default values. As you can see, my preferred package manager is PnPm. Additionally, I want my npm packages to be installed when I run the init command, this one. You can also see my SharePoint credentials here. Please note that the password is not displayed in plain text, but encrypted. By the way, this is not my actual password, so don't even try to decrypt it. Okay, now I will show my procedure when I create a new project. I have a completely empty folder here, empty folder. Now the first thing I want to do is create a local configuration file by typing spfx config create. Now I got a new file. You can also add this file to the git ignore file so that each user has their own file. It's up to you. As you can see, the local configuration file inherits settings from the global configuration except for the password, which you need to set each time for the local config. Let's create a new SPFx file, project, sorry. Normally, you would do this with the yo Microsoft SharePoint command, but in this case, it's much more easier, just SPFx and then new. You can pass all the other parameters from the yo generator, but in this case, it's enough. And here comes the SharePoint generator, hopefully. Yeah, okay. I want to mention that a file was created, the npm rc. This is created automatically because I use PnPm, and these settings are important for PnPm. At this point, I would like to stop the generator. Otherwise, it would take too long. Instead, I already have a completely new project here, which has the same configurations and comes with the standard hello world webpart, this one. Now, I can set my user password because this can only be done for the local configuration file after the project has been created. SPFx config set password and -l for local. Oh, by the way, the only thing I have done here in this project, I run SPFx fast serve command because I use it everywhere, and you should too if you are not already. Now let's run the SPFx init command. SPFx init. What does the command do? First, it creates the SPFx AppDev folder here. The folder contains gulp tasks like version bumping or suppressing warnings or custom alias path. By the way, I decided to put the files in the SPFx AppDev folder instead of providing it with an npm package, because then you have the possibility to adapt the logic. Regarding the aliases, they are also registered for fast serve. And my mouse is dead. Sorry for that. Here. And the same for tsconfig here. Next, it modifies the gulp file and registers the tasks. Gulp file here. And it updates the package JSON and registers this command, or npm commands, publish and publish no warn. You can create then or packaging a SharePoint solution all in one command: clean build, bump version, bundle, and package solution. It also sets the serve URL and installs the npm packages as specified in the configuration file. Pretty cool, don't you think? A 2-second command that automates multiple steps for you. Okay, now let's get to the interesting part, the automatic model generation. As I said before, it's a completely new empty project. So there is no logic or models. As you can see here, it's just webpart. And I have here site collection, and I have a list named PnP with many columns of different fields, as you can see here. Lookup, taxonomy fields, and so on. Now let's create a model that maps all visible list columns. For this, I will use also my CLI. Let me quickly change the branch. Changes, discard all. Model. It's the same code, but with the right credentials. Now I simply add SPFx, G for generate, M for model, then the model name, PnP list item, -L stands for list, and list PnP is my list URL. Now I got this new changes. The models folder is created, the PnP list item class is created, as well as the interfaces and all the SharePoint field types. I want to mention that the model uses my mapper packages. It contains the mapper decorators. This package allows mapping JSON objects to class objects or vice versa, similar to the JSON serializer attribute in C#. The nice thing is that you have clean class properties in camel case, as is common in TypeScript, while still being able to map the ugly SharePoint fields like this one or this one, for example. I have chosen very unattractive names on purpose here, by the way. As you can see, it's really cool and fast. Now let me show you how to use it. We will create a new service class using the CLI as well. It's the same as SPFx generate service PnP list service, and this will create a new empty service without any content. It's just a default one. And I have already prepared some code that calls the list API and retrieve all list items. But for that, I need to switch again to the other branch. Service. It's the same service class. It's the same content, but I add here some code. For example, the endpoint. It aggregates to the API, gets all the items, and then converts the result from JSON to class to our PnP list item model class. And let me type or run npm serve while I'm explaining the webpart code. The webpart code is, of course, on the webparts. Hello world. Here, again, it's the same code as before in the other branch. The default generated webpart code. I have updated the onInit method, and it's and this onInit use only my or consume my service class and get the item collection as an array of our PnP list item. This one. I want to show you that in the browser. So no local. Currently, I refresh the page. Should be there. I placed it on the console. As you can see, here is my results. I have 2 items and the object as PnP list items. I have the camel case fields or properties. And for example, a date object was converted to date object. Taxonomy field was converted to taxonomy field value. that is also a mapper attribute, a custom class. And you can do the same vice versa as mentioned before. So let me show you that. It's the same if you want, for example, to convert your class to plain, so you can update your item afterwards. And now it should be, yeah, let's say the ugly names, content types, are blah blah, Boolean field, and so on. Yeah, that's it. Let's go back to the slides. Here you can find further links about the CLI, and yeah, thank you very much for your attention.
Awesome, awesome, very cool demo. Thank you, Sergej. How about another round of applause for all of our presenters today? You can all see my screen, hopefully. If you enjoyed this call, make sure you give us some feedback. We would love to know what we can improve, what you like to see, or what you didn't like. So go to aka.ms/community/calls/feedback and let us know how we're doing. All right, one more update. Please join our Discord. There's lots of great discussions happening there. It's a place where we can share information, ask questions, and stay up to date about all the things happening within our community. You can scan that QR code there or go to aka.ms/community/discord. And lastly, thank you. This call will be up on YouTube within 24 hours. Make sure to check us out on Twitter. And the next Viva Connections call is October 19th at the same time. And then the next N365 Power Platform call October 12th. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.